Once you've got a face and a character from head to toe all decked out, one of the things you need to work on is poses. Now this is where the gesture comes in extremely handy. What type of poses? What's going to happen in this story? Well, I imagine Zeke's going to be riding a horse. I imagine that Sally might be riding a horse as well, getting off the horse, maybe running, maybe waving, doing some gestures. So I'm going to go ahead and just start sketching some of these poses to see if I can get them down as a sketch, and then I can copy those into my final drawing, into my final comic book page. Again, starting with stick figures, let's do Zeke waving on top of, I got a reference of a horse here. We'll do a horse. Again, just stick figures. And let's see, let's do one of Sally waving. The stick figures allow you to focus on the characters, kind of like their bones, kind of like you're working with them as a skeleton and posing their torso and their spine, their arms and their legs. I like to also give them little stick hands just to, in case they have to be showing their fingers. Now the next step after I've got the basic stick figure movement, the basic gesture, is I like to bulk them up. I like to block in the characters. So this means giving them a thickness. It means giving Sally a body. It means giving Sally legs, doing the outlines of her legs, doing the outlines of her arm, giving it some thickness. Now this takes practice because arms and legs look a certain way as well as heads and hands, and you need to practice those. I've done some practicing already, so I think I'm ready for it, but if you ever have trouble on any of the parts of a character, go ahead, look in the mirror, draw yourself. That's the quickest way to learn. But the blocking stage really just breaks down everything into basic shapes. You're breaking the legs into tubes. You're breaking the feet into like wedges. You're breaking the hands into like a mitten. Same thing with the horse. The horse is like one long tube, a tapered tube, and like a cone with the top cut off. Now when I put these lines in there, those help line things up. Those are called access lines. Those access lines help me line things up that are symmetrical. So the eyes of characters, the middle line for the nose, whether it's a horse or a human, using those access lines help line up the anatomy, helps line up the different parts so that everything seems symmetrical. Nobody has a broken or weird face or tilted eyes, anything that might be a little distracting. All right, so now that we have some bulk that's been blocked in, we also have the gesture. Let's go ahead and put some final, what I'd call a contour on it. Now the final contour brings in the detail, and this is where you may need to have your reference. A lot of times I will have the reference right off to the side here. I'll have it right here on my board or right off to the side where I can continue to look at it as I'm going along. This is hard to memorize everything. Right now I'm using a marker, and the advantage of using a marker is it allows a very dark, bold line to cover my lighter lines. Now I'm using a blue marker for the purpose of this video, but what I recommend you guys do is to use a pencil and to be as light as you can with the pencil so that when you go back in with a marker or a Sharpie or some form of ink, it's going to stand out, and your pencil lines, which have scribbles and stick figures, those will disappear. They will not be as noticeable, plus you'll be able to erase them. You run an eraser over it, erase the pencil, and keep the pen. Make sure we give Zeke that. He needs to be a big guy, so we need to make sure we draw him in there properly. Almost forgot. He actually has a couple of guns here. We have his hand here. Roll up sleeves. Now I carefully go over the hands. That definitely is going to add the realism to it instead of having sticks for hands. This is where I get my cowboy boots. Now I don't draw cowboy boots every day, so I definitely had to look at my reference. And there's a very specific way that the heel is on cowboy boots. And I'm going to simplify the design. There's some pretty interesting cowboy boots out there. They have really, really interesting designs. However, when I'm drawing a cartoon, I do want to keep things simple. That's the style I choose to work in, and that's what I recommend for you guys. It's not a bad thing to add detail. Of course, a comic book that is 24 pages is going to require you to do, let's say you do 6 panels for 24 pages. That's well over 100 drawings that you're going to have to do. So if every panel is going to be a very involved drawing, you'll just have to know that you're going to have to draw 100 of those. So I like to keep the detail as simple as possible. And it all depends on your own taste. But I think a lot of successful stories can be done in a fairly simple style. And the style that you see me working in here. You know what's kind of tricky is the hooves, the feet of the horse. So I need to double check my reference here. Let's put that right up there. Let's take a look. Okay. And there's that back leg. All right. Darken in the straps of the saddle. Maybe darken in the saddle to separate it from Zeke. And give him some dark hair. I think that would be a nice design element. Again, this is your cartoon, so develop it any way you want. Add any design elements that you want. And I think that'll be it for Zeke. Let's go ahead and develop Sally a little bit. And Sally, as per our story, the problem in the story that I've been thinking about is that Sally doesn't have a hat. It's really hot outside. She wants to cover her head. She forgot her hat at home. So I'm going to draw her without the hat. I'm not just going to draw her smiling. If you remember, let's take a flip back. Sally normally is a nice smiley girl. You know, she's a cowboy or cowgirl, and she loves just going out there and doing her thing, rustling cattle. However, she's hurting right now. It's a little hot. So she might even be sweating a little bit, put a little sweat drops on her head. I'm going to make her eyes look really worried. I'm going to put her mouth in a frowning, sort of shouting position. And this is all building her as a character who's in trouble. Because if characters are happy all the time, then we never really get a story out of it. You have to have some sort of a conflict, some sort of a problem in order to have a story. So now we'll just get her shirt in there. Collar. Now let's see, this is a perfect example of correcting your mistakes here. I'm looking at these arms and I'm seeing that this arm looks a little too long, so I'm going to shorten it a bit. And I'm thinking that the other one might need to be a little longer. So there's that arm. And yes, I do think that this one can be a little longer. Good thing I did it lightly first. Okay, let's see, what else does she got? Always helps to refer to your initial drawing. Okay, she has dark pants, and let's see her. She has a little belt, and she's got cowboy boots. All right. So we've got our characters. They're now in some convincing poses. We now have actors for our movie, so to speak. A comic book is kind of like a movie or a TV show. You've got to have actors. But like any movie or any novel that you would read, you've got to have not just characters, but you need to put them in a setting, and you also need to have a plot. Well, I had my idea that the plot would be that it's really sunny outside, Zeke's got a hat, and Sally doesn't. But what am I missing here? I'm missing a setting. And the setting is something that